So today I have the pleasure of being joined by Sara McFadden, who is a service user of NCBI living in Mayo. I'm June Tinsley, Head of Communications with NCBI, and Sarah has agreed to join me today as part of the series that I'm doing, interviewing various different service users to understand a bit more about their lives. So thanks very much, Sarah, for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me.
Great. I suppose we may as well just kick off. And would you mind telling the listeners just a little bit about yourself and where you live and what you're up to these days?
Yeah, no problem. So my name is Sara McFadden, as you introduced. I'm from Castlebar in County Mayo. I'm currently studying in IT Sligo. I'm just finished first year, a little different, I suppose, normal first years with everything going on at the minute. But I'm looking forward to getting back in September, hopefully, and we'll see how that kind of goes. I suppose I am actually a visually impaired rally navigator, so I have albinism and nystagmus, which leave me severely visually impaired since birth. And yeah, so that's, I suppose, just a little bit, and we can go into more detail in the next couple of minutes.
Great. So going to college in Sligo, what course are you doing?
So I'm doing a level 8 Bachelor of Business with Sport. So basically what that is it's a very full-on course. It's a full-time Bachelor of Business, but we also do a sports course with that. So we do a load of different sporting activities and coaching courses and all that kind of thing, so that it gives me quite a broad scope on things. I'm hoping then after that to go into PE teaching.
Fabulous. And I suppose, as you rightly said, it's a broad, diverse course covering so many sports. And given we're still in the COVID-19 situation, how has that kind of affected the classes that you've been able to do? Because you haven't been able to meet together to do the sports.
Yeah, so we were quite lucky that we were kind of covered an awful lot of the sports sections. We had the majority of it covered for first year. So basically what we were doing was we were doing kind of Microsoft Teams stuff, and we were doing a couple of group projects and all that kind of thing. We just happened to get lucky. The way our course is designed, our second semester for first year is a lot of kind of written work and that kind of thing, whereas first semester was very hands-on. So we kind of got lucky in that respect, that we were able to kind of keep going with obviously a lot of changes, but we were able to kind of keep going the way we were going. So we didn't lose out an awful lot. But when we get back now, hopefully in September, we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I mean, that's very reassuring that you feel you didn't really lose out on the course segments of the degree that you're doing, but certainly it'll be interesting to see how the framework of the course will be different in September.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. As you said there, we didn't lose out too much, so we're hoping that if we can get back in September, October time, that hopefully we won't be changing too much. We want the same experience as everyone else had going through the course, and I'm hoping that it won't change too much. But the way things are, if it changes, it changes, and we don't have much of a way around it. But we're all looking forward to seeing what we're going to go back to.
Yes, I'm sure everybody's in that situation. Um, and tell us about your low vision. How has that affected your schooling or participation in college life?
Yeah, so I suppose it didn't. It obviously it affects you a small bit, but the services that IT Sligo provide in the access department is fantastic. I got a meeting almost straight away. They helped me to sort out everything I needed. I get all my notes emailed from lecturers. I type my exams. They sorted me out with iPads and laptops that I needed for my notes and all that kind of thing. So the college really helped me an awful lot to make it that little bit easier, that change from second to third level, as it is a very big change. And I suppose college life wasn't really that affected. We were a very close course. We all get on, so it wasn't really that much of it wasn't that, it didn't really affect me that much, I suppose you could say. But definitely the college supports and the access office really helped me along the way.
I suppose that's why those services are there, to make that transition as easy as possible for students.
Yeah, exactly. once you get a meeting, and they're always, the majority of colleges are all the same. Once you get your meeting and you get everything sorted, they're always there to help. And I'd highly recommend anyone that's maybe afraid to go or that kind of thing, that just to go, and they'll help you out with anything you need. And they really helped me. And if I hadn't gone, it wouldn't have been the same experience.
That's a very valid point, and we certainly would encourage other students in the same position to knock on the door of those access officers, because genuinely they are there to help.
Yeah, exactly.
And in terms of other services that it might have helped you, what services have you received from NCBI over the years?
Oh, I've received an awful lot of support from the NCBI over the years. From basically I was born, my mom and dad were getting support, and then all along the way through school and stuff, they supported me, giving me different pieces of equipment that I needed to make my life easier, different things for school and then out of school, and they just, without the NCBI, I definitely wouldn't be the same person I am today, because without the help and the equipment and support that they provide to not just the service user, but to the or user's family and all that kind of thing, it honestly just makes life so much easier.
I suppose it's just the reassurance to know that you're not, you and your family are not alone, and that support is there if you require it. It must be, as I said, very reassuring.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly it. When I was born, things weren't, social media wasn't as like, it wasn't around back then, and I suppose there wasn't as much things for parents to know that things will be okay. And without the NCBI, maybe things would have been a bit different for my parents. But the NCBI were always there to offer them support and guidance through the whole thing.
And it's literally that support and guidance, is, as you said, is a lifeline for many. And it sounds as if one of your lifelines is your passion for being a rally co-driver. That sounds fascinating. How did you get involved in that?
Yeah, so I suppose I'll start from the beginning when I'm explaining how I got into it. So, mom and dad have been involved in all different types of motorsport, from running events to competing in events, both of them. The mom was a navigator for years, and she drove on occasions, and dad drove for years. And I suppose I basically grew up around it. And I suppose, like any sport, once you grow up around a sport, like, there's a good chance that you're going to get into it. And the motorsport is all just one family. We're a very tight knit community, and just to be involved, I've always wanted to be involved when I was growing up. And I suppose, like most kids, you want to kind of grow up in your parents' footsteps and that kind of thing. But I always wanted to be a rally driver. I always looked up to mom and dad, and I always went to events that dad was on. And I was like, someday I'm going to be a driver, and all that kind of thing. But when I was 12 and I went to one of my appointments for the optician, and I was like, oh, I said something about, oh, I can't wait to start driving or something. And basically, they had to break the news to me that I'd never actually be able to drive with how severe my sight was. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely a devastating blow at that time, and I didn't really know what to do, because all I wanted to do was be a rally driver. But I suppose I went home, and it didn't really take me too long to realise that it might mean that I can't be a navigator. So basically, in rallying, which is the form of motorsport I compete in, there's two people in the car. So you have a driver and a navigator, co-driver, co-pilot. There's a couple of different names for it. So then in July 2018, so you can compete in motorsport navigating from when you're 16. So July 2018, I was 17. I applied off to Motorsport Ireland, which is the governing body for motorsport in Ireland. And I applied for the license. And after a medical check, which came up clear that I'd be safe enough to compete, I passed that with flying colours, and they granted me my license then in that July.
And I mean, it sounds as if it's a very fast-paced sport to be involved in. And is there any drawbacks, do you think, by having low vision being involved in that sport, or has it affected you in any way?
I honestly don't think that it has affected me that much. At the very start, maybe it did a little bit until I got used to it. But like anyone getting involved in a sport, everyone has to find their way of the sport. Like, I suppose, um, when I've actually, as you said, it's a very, very fast-paced sport. But um, I I don't do anything by halves, as a lot of people who know me would know. I played camogie for years for Mayo and all that kind of thing. But I always when I go to do something, I always want to be the best that I can at it. So when I started originally, we had planned on doing one or two events, and that was kind of it, you know, to prove that I could do it and all that kind of thing. But when I went to the first event that July, when I got the license, I just grew the love for it immediately. Like, and one event that year turned into four, and then four events that year turned into us deciding to do what's called the National Rally Championship in Ireland. So in Ireland, you have about three or four main championships, and we decided that last year we'd do the national championship. So basically, what that is, it's the national championship for 1 day rally events in the country. So that is literally one of the highest levels of the sport in this country that you can get. And by the end of the year, we had some disappointments during the year in a couple of events, and points just didn't work our way with non-finishes. But by the end of the year, we ended up coming second in the National Rally Championship, second in the Border Rally Championship, second in the West Coast Rally Championship,
Wow.
and we came third in the Midlands East Rally Championship. So I suppose, although of course there are some drawbacks to the championship, or to the champion, although there are some drawbacks to being visually impaired, I've worked my different ways around doing it. What we made a couple of modifications to our car. We did what's called a flock dash. So that's basically kind of a velvet effect of a black kind of carpety kind of material that basically stops any glare coming off the dash. And
Okay.
we put a dark tint on the windows of the car to stop the sun coming in so that I'd be able to read. But I've got an awful lot better over the course of it, and I suppose I've developed, and I'm definitely getting there every day. Like anyone in a sport, every time you practice, you're going to get better and better. And I'm really really happy with where I am now at the minute. So yeah, no, although like I said, there are a couple of drawbacks, but in it's all about how you overcome them, and I really enjoy what I do. So it's all about making sure that you can overcome them to do what you love.
Well, it certainly sounds if you've taken everything in your stride and certainly accomplished so much in such a short space of time in terms of the success you've had in the competitions. It's absolutely phenomenal. And tell me, is it the same driver that you have all the time, or is it different drivers?
So at the beginning, I was lucky that my father Keith was competing. So my first 14 events were with him. But this year, unfortunately, I had got a new seat for this year, an extra driver, Ian McCarthy from County Cork. We had signed up for what's called the Irish Forestry Rally Championship. So up until now, what I've been doing was competing with Dad on tarmac championship or on tarmac roads, but this one's actually on gravel surfaces. So that was going to be a big change. Getting used to a new driver, of course. You have to build a level of trust, but he was very good and he was very accommodating when we were going through everything at the start, and he was more than happy to have me into the car. And um, unfortunately, we went down to our first event in Limerick, and it started snowing
Oh,
in at the start of March this year. So unfortunately, the event had to be cancelled. So that was on the 1st or the 2nd of March, and then our next round of the championship was meant to be at the end of March, and then of course the COVID-19 came in,
yeah. So
and
you
the
have to take
championship
your.
had to be cancelled for this year.
Oh, that's
So um, we were hoping to get out next year again and take a run at the championship. But I have a couple of very good drivers lined up for this year if we can get any events to go ahead, because unfortunately the way motorsport is, it's all the motorsport can't run without the goodwill of residents. And of course it's going to be hard to know if events are going to be able to run this year or not. Of course with COVID-19 we're going to have to see how the restrictions go and that kind of thing. So hopefully by the end of the year I'll get a couple of events. I probably won't end up doing another one with Dad this year. I'll probably hold out and do them with the other drivers to further develop as a co-driver, to get better and better. Like I said before, it's all about getting better and developing. But hopefully I'll get out with a couple of these other drivers for the end of this year if there are any events. If there aren't, we'll just have to wait a year. It's not going to be the end of the world.
Well, it certainly sounds as if the whole sport is physically in your blood, so you're taken to it so easily that even if there is a delay due to COVID-19, it's a thing you'll be able to pick up back up again in 2021. And fingers crossed, um,
Yeah.
the sport will be back up and running sooner rather than later.
Yeah, that's very true. Like they say, I was born with petrol in my veins, basically. But it's all about staying focused during this very different times. Like we can't be out in a car, so it's all about finding different ways of practicing and that kind of thing. So once you're staying focused and you're always doing a little bits of practice here and there to try and keep the skills sharp and that kind of thing. 2021 won't be long coming around.
True.
So
And tell
I'm
me,
really
sorry, tell me, how long does a usual driving course last?
Yeah, so basically in Ireland there are a couple of different types. So the types that we've competed in up until now are 1 day events. So basically what that means is you're racing for one full day, but actually the day before. So you race all day on the Sunday, but
Yeah,
actually on the day before what you do is called recce or reconnaissance. So basically what that is you drive the stages, which are the course. So you drive that the day before in your road car at a regular kind of speed.
yeah,
You're on a lower speed limit even than the roads are allow. But what we do then that day is we prepare our pace notes, which are basically a very detailed description of the road ahead that the navigator reads to the driver. So the navigator's job is to read these pace notes to the driver so that the driver knows what's coming ahead for them so that they can take the maximum speed through the road.
true.
So we prepare them the day before the event, and then we put our car through what's called scrutiny just to make sure that our car is fully up to all safety standards. It's gone through. There's a full scrutineer goes through the car fully just to make sure that the car is completely safe because motorsport is all about safety, safety, safety. So we never take any. That's the one thing you never take chances with in motorsport is safety. So like I said, the day before you go through scrutiny, and then your car is put in overnight and it's watched so that you're not allowed to make any changes to that. And
Yes,
then the following day, then you compete for the full day. But in Ireland, there are some different events. So you can have 2 day events, which hopefully, if it goes ahead, it is going ahead as per now. Will be the Wexford Stages Rally in September. So I'll be hoping to get out and do that. But that's going to be a 2 day event. So basically, what you do is you do your recce on the Friday, or the Thursday and the Friday. It depends. It depends how long you have for the recce, and then you compete on the Saturday and the Sunday. So that means basically you just have extra stages,
yes.
which would be really good to get back, with a bang.
Wow. I mean, it sounds absolutely fascinating, and I can literally hear the passion in your voice because it's literally in your blood. Um, and you're obviously a bit of a speed junkie, I'd imagine, are you?
Oh, definitely. I always have been, and I always will be, I suppose. I actually got the opportunity last December, thanks to the Rally Sport Association. They gave me the opportunity to fulfill, I suppose, one of my lifelong dreams, and they actually gave me a rally car to drive for the day. So I got to compete on a rally sport event in Mondello Park.
Oh, that must have
Um,
been amazing.
yeah, so that was really, really special. So I had a navigator in with me for the day, and I suppose everyone was shocked. I won the ladies award in the day, and when I got in, everyone was a bit shocked. I actually didn't even come last.
Fair play to you.
So I suppose everyone was a little bit shocked that day, but I definitely had petrol running through my veins, and I really love the sport, and that's I think what the most important thing is. Everyone should have something they love and follow it.
Very much so. And as I said, it's clear from your voice how much you're passionate about it. And I suppose just to conclude, Sarah, is there any one piece of advice that you'd give to another individual who is living with sight loss or who is blind?
Yeah, I've always gone with the piece of advice that if anyone has something they love or a dream in life, that they should always try their absolute best to try and fulfill it. Like for me, being a visually impaired navigator, that wasn't really, no one kind of expected that coming. Everyone has something that they want to do in life, and I've always said that there's a million ways around and into doing something, and I think that it's really, really important that if there's something that you want to do, that you go out and do it. I always went with the kind of quote that the only thing worse than being blind is having no vision. So I've always had a vision for the future that I wanted to compete and rally, and thankfully at such a young age I managed to achieve that. And I just think that if someone else has something that they want to do, that they should go out and try and do it as well.
Very, very inspiring words indeed. Well, listen, I just wish you really, really well in the rest of your career as a co-navigator, and best of luck going back to college. And delighted to hear NCBI has been a help and a resource to you and your family over the years. And thanks very much for your time. Great to talk to you.
Thank you very much.